are joining us again. You've already attended some of the events this week. Thank you for continuing to give us your time. For those of you who are new, welcome to Power Skills. I'd like to introduce a few of my colleagues. My name is Valerie Dueni. I'm a member of the CATS team, and I'm joined by my colleague, Nayo Gariepi. Want to say hi, Nayo?
Hi. Bonjour, everyone.
And my colleague, Emily Salvi. I see your name there.
Hey, everyone. Welcome.
Fantastic. Oh, we have people from Ottawa. Amazing. We are recording the session. It's currently live on Facebook. So one of my colleagues will put the our Facebook page link in there if you want to go back and kind of recap. Welcome, Alexander from Montreal. Amazing. Very cool. So on behalf of McGill University, McGill School of Continuing Studies, and the entire CATS team, it is an absolute pleasure to welcome our speaker today. She is a force to be reckoned with, not only in business, but in terms of social media and personal branding. So we're all in luck today. We're gonna get some tips and tricks from the one and only Marina Byezhanova.
You got it perfectly right. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for being here. I appreciate Valerie asking if you could all be on mute, but if you are comfortable showing your lovely faces to me, I would really, really appreciate it. You know, it's, I'm seeing some names that I recognize, and it's so heartwarming. Thank you for those of you who are turning on your video. You know, one of the things that I lament now every time, hi Rob, it's been a while since I've seen you, it's so cool, hi. So every time now I start, you know, a webinar or any type of presentation in this, you know, format that we have all found ourselves in, I feel I cannot move forward unless I acknowledge how much I wish we were doing this in person. However, I have to say, those of you who are from other cities, other countries, again, amazing that you joined. I feel quite honored and privileged, and big thanks to McGill for organizing it. But boy, how I miss the energy of a room where I'm emitting energy and I'm getting yours. At least I can see your faces. I've done some webinars recently where the only face I see is mine. It's a bit awkward when you're just staring at yourself and you feel that you're talking into the mirror. It's awesome to see you all. I will ask you, however, too, because I can't hear any noise, or if ever you laugh, I'm not particularly funny, but you know, if I'm giving a talk in person, if I do make people laugh, it really, you know, energizes me further. I won't hear that, but I do appreciate it. I will appreciate it if you are participating as well. If it is not just me being a talking head for 2 hours, but if we can make this feel like a community that got together to learn together, to exchange and participate. So we've got, hi Olivier. We've got our chat box. And so what I invite you to do is I will be asking questions. Please don't be shy and just drop in your answers in the chat box. I was going to say there's no such thing as a wrong answer. Sometimes there is such thing as a wrong answer, but who cares? We're here to learn, discuss, and challenge each other if need be. So if you have a question, or if you have a comment, or if you are laughing, you can say, ha, ha, ha. I will appreciate that too. Put it in the chat box. And if you have a long question and you don't want to type up the whole thing, just put number 1 in chat. And this way, when I notice it, I will know that you want to ask a question. I'll ask you to come off mute and you will ask it directly. Sounds good? Get a thumbs up and some nods. Awesome, great. Look, to all those of you who know me, which I know some of you do, thank you for the high five. Some of you know me, and so if you know me, you know that my personal brand is predicated, among other things, on honesty, transparency, and pretty uninhibited raw sharing. So I have to share with you a couple of things this morning. One, and those of you especially who are parents, I will appreciate your empathy and understanding this morning. I know, Valerie, you will. We just spoke about your child. I have a 4-year-old and a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old. And of course, working from home for the last, I keep saying few weeks, it's been a few months. I think I'm still in denial as to what's going on. It hasn't been easy, right? It hasn't been easy. We're juggling, you know, the kids, the work. And because I do a lot of events, I really need to make sure that when I am doing an event, my 4-year-old cooperates. 4-year-olds are not always reasonable. Sometimes they are, but it's unpredictable. And if I know that he is around and the situation is unpredictable, I'm tense and I can't focus. And so, of course, every time I do an event or I'm teaching this summer, I do a lot of LinkedIn Lives. I try to make sure, welcome to reality. Yes, the current reality. I'm still in denial. So I try to make sure that there's some sort of childcare. You know, he's going to be out of the house and then I have my time to focus. This morning, my childcare arrangements fell through. And if ever you've seen a frazzled person, you've never seen anybody this frazzled. That was running around and was just trying to figure things out. And very fortunately, found a business owner in the area who let me use his beautiful office space with no kids around, and here's where I am. So I just wanted to share the parenting moment with all of you. Another thing that I want to share very candidly and very authentically is, I by now have had the privilege and the opportunity to speak to audience across the globe. I've given talks on different continents, given a talk in Saudi Arabia. I've been quite privileged to have people interested every now and then in what I have to say. And of course, you know, public speaking has become a big part of my life. Sometimes it's still, you know, unnerving, makes me, you know, makes me nervous, makes me stressed. Nothing feels as intimidating to me as speaking at McGill. Nothing. The reason for that, you see, is that I graduated from McGill 16 years ago. You would think by now I would be over my traumatic experiences. Sometimes, you know, we keep them with us longer than that. So 16 years ago, I was a student at McGill University in the business program. And I was also a recently arrived immigrant, fresh off the boat, as the expression says. So I had a severely heavy accent. I was massively insecure as a result, not only a result of the accent, but also I could never get my fashion choices right. I would get a lot of comments about those. I was in a marketing program. I didn't understand most cultural references that were made. I just consistently felt out of the loop. All I wanted my personal brand to be at the time, without knowing it would be a personal brand, is that of somebody pretty invisible and somebody who doesn't stand out. Quite a difference to my intentions today and where I am today. But inadvertently, when I have a talk at McGill, I always have those flashbacks, you know, to the younger woman standing in front of a class, trying to give a presentation, stuttering, having people snicker or look really confused as to what, yes, hard to be a newcomer, it is on many levels. You know, people snickering, people whispering, and, you know, people in that age group are not the kindest, is what I found out. So I wanted to share that with you as well. And I will refer to that journey a few times throughout the presentation. Natalia, you're saying people are obnoxious. I think people sometimes don't realize. I think more often than not, people are, you know, well-intentioned in general, but just don't realize the effect that comments or, you know, snickers, etc. make. So those things I wanted to share with you. And so for me, you know, if you would have told me 16 years ago that I would be giving talks, and particularly I would be giving a talk at McGill, talking about personal branding, talking about how to speak up, how to stand up and stand out, I would have never believed you. And yet here we are. And Valerie, thank you so much for having me. So let's jump right into our presentation today. If you will just give me a moment to try and share my screen. And for some reason, I cannot see the PowerPoint presentation on my screen. Nayo, I might need your help.
Yeah, coming in here if you want. I can try. If you want, you can send it to me. I can play it or...
Oh no, hold on. I think I figured it out. Here it is.
Fantastic.
Oh, I feel good now about my technical savvy of sharing a screen. Okay, here we are. So here's what we're going to talk about today, personal branding 101. And what I will ask you to do will just take 2 minutes. I would love you to drop me a comment in chat and tell me why you're interested in the topic of personal branding. I assume you're interested in it because you're here this morning. But so why are you curious about it? Why are you interested? What do you want to learn about it? Why is it on your radar? Just take a couple of minutes for you to let me know. All right, hold on, it's pouring in. Okay, so looking for change industry and job. Great, we will be talking about that, Sandra. Rastek is just curious, that's great. Helping advance in the job search. Roberta is also curious to know what he might not know. I'm an introvert and it gets difficult to market and brand myself professionally. I love that because there is definitely this very big misconception that in order to have a personal brand, you have to have this big personality and you have to really be putting yourself out there in a very, loud way and an extroverted way. Challenging on to present myself, feel clueless about developing my own personal brand. Want to make the best first impression, opera performer. That is very, very cool. Okay, awesome. And what I will also ask you guys, the organizers, to do is to save the comments from the chat and leave them and send me a copy after. I would really appreciate that because I really want to do my best to get back to as many of you and see if we achieved what we were here to achieve. I'm just going to stop my share for a moment because I want to be able to see you all as I'm sharing the screen, and otherwise it is not allowing me. So please allow me just one more second. And we will jump right into answering all your questions and learning everything about personal branding. Let me just reopen it again. I'll quickly tell you guys, as I'm figuring out technology, I'm teaching a course this summer at Concordia. And my students had to fill out a survey and rate me, midpoint in the class survey, and rate me on my kind of strengths and areas to improve. I can tell you that technology and my use of Zoom and other platforms did not rank it high in their opinions. So I told them that what I would be able to do is really make up for it with the standout content, since I can really improve my technology more than I have already. Okay, good. So personal branding 101. Question number one, and again, I will start with throwing this question at all of you because a few of you have said, this is the reason I'm curious about personal branding, or here are the challenges I'm facing. So question number one is, what, in your opinion, is a personal brand? Your story, interesting, Natalia. Any other ideas? Your personal brand is something that makes you unique, what you stand for, how you advertise yourself, professional expertise, what you represent. People know from me, reputation, personality, way to show you to the world, what defines you. Excellent. So a lot of different components. So today we're going to talk about what a personal brand is. We will talk about, well, why do you need a personal brand? And a question I frequently get is not why do I need a personal brand, but do I need a personal brand? So we'll uncover that as well. And we'll talk about, you know, if you decide that you do need a personal brand, well, how do you brand yourself? And a few of you have asked that question. Okay, so perhaps many of you are sold on the why, kind of understand the what, but now have questions around the how. And so that is what we're going to focus on quite heavily today. So a personal brand is quite simply the sum of people's perceptions about you. Okay, quite simply, the sum of people's perceptions about you. Where that definition comes from is really the definition of a corporate brand. The corporate brand is a sum of, you know, clients or prospective clients' perceptions of the company or the company's particular brand. It's all about perceptions and the sum of perceptions. And now another question for you. Why do you feel you need a personal brand? And if you don't feel that you might, then say, I'm not so sure I need it. And that's a valid, again, statement, question, concern that I frequently get as well. So why do you need a personal brand, in your opinion? To stand out? And if you said to stand out, that's really interesting. And again, somebody, Angela, also is saying that is how you stand out. Why do you need to stand out? Why is that important? Great, to get recognized. I love it. Michelle, I absolutely love what you said. You know, when people ask me, you know, Marina, why do I need a personal brand? I don't think I need one. I remind them of the definition of a personal brand. Whether or not you want to have a personal brand, you have it. Personal brand is the sum of people's perceptions of you. And unless you're tangible and intentional with how you want to be perceived, right? And we're all complex individuals. We can be perceived on various parts of our personalities, various parts of our skill set. It is whatever we're putting out there, right? And so unless you want to allow people the opportunity to form their perceptions without your intention, they really can become anything. You know, when I was a student at McGill University, I am sure that I was perceived more, not for my, you know, potential smarts, curiosity, a lot of things that I brought to the table. I was quite likely perceived. Yes, Hannah, the old-fashioned word might be reputation, not old-fashioned at all. Yes, it is your reputation. The reason that I say it's the sum of people's perceptions is that often when I say reputation, people go like, well, what do I do with my reputation? How do I manage my reputation? But yes, absolutely, it's an excellent synonym to use as well. So it is the sum of people's perceptions of you, and it is your reputation. And when you are intentional with how you want to, you know, manage your reputation and the perceptions that people have of you, you more easily will stand out for the things for which you want to stand out, right? Because again, certainly during my years at McGill, I did stand out, but not for the things I wanted to, right? I stood out for my very immigrant self. I stood out for my inability to figure out what was current in the current context and pertinent. I stood out for constantly, you know, saying the wrong thing because my English was not great. I didn't understand, you know, certain turns of phrases and impressions. So I stood out, but for things that were not, you know, the things that I wanted to stand out for. So when we look at the personal brand and when we look at the why, we give ourselves the opportunity to be in control of our own rhetoric and as a result in control of what people perceive us as. And now the next question is, why do you need to scale it? What are the benefits of, so we build our brand and we build our reputation, and we can have reputation in a very small circle, right? We can have, you know, our close-knit circle of people that know us, and we have a fantastic reputation there, and that's great. But what we're going to be talking about today is not just building a personal brand predicated on the things that are important to you, but also then scaling its reach so that you have, you know, a wider audience that is exposed to who you are and what your brand is. Any ideas as to why we need to scale the reach of our brand? Why we can't just, you know, build it and know that people we are coming in contact with will perceive us for who we are and leave it there? Why the need for scaling it? Business is global, interesting. So much background noise, networking, job opportunity. Have a doubt here. Ooh, love your question, Roberta. We will talk about it in a bit more detail, but just in case we don't dive into it deep enough, authenticity is absolutely the core of a personal brand. Nothing, and it's very interesting, you know, people will say to me very frequently, you know, I don't want to, let's say, be building my, let me just do this so I can see your faces for a moment. A lot of people will say to me, Marina, I don't want to be building, you know, a big personal brand because I don't want to appear as person ABC or XYZ. And we're live and we're recording, so I'm not going to start dropping names here. But very often, that's what people say to me. I don't want to appear as this loud person. I don't want to appear as that obnoxious person. And what I tell people is that loud and obnoxious person doesn't appear that way. It's who they are offline. They are being very authentic in demonstrating who they are in all different places and platforms and forms of media, right? So thing is, if you are not loud and obnoxious in your real life, you will not appear as such on social media. Is there a need to, there are different pillars of a personal brand that make it successful, and you need to play by those rules. We will be talking about that. But do you need to fix your personality? Do you need to shift something about it in order to, you know, be perceived a certain way? Absolutely not. Your personal brand needs to be authentic. And listen, I was going to bring him up as an example later, but Donald Trump, right? Very authentic, and has a huge following, right? We're not going to get political and discuss, you know, the good, the bad, and what we think about it, but has a huge following. So being authentic is really important, because what that gives to you is a lot of people might not like you. Your authentic self might not be the, you know, most universally liked self. That is fine. We're all very different people. But at the very least, the people that will gravitate towards your authentic self, they really will. And the thing is, unless you're dreaming of a life of an online influencer who is just going to stay online, well, in that case, you could build a character and be pretty successful with it. But if that's not your intention, if your intention is to reap offline benefits from the online, you know, brand that you're building, well, then yes, absolutely, you need to be authentic, because nothing worse can happen than, you know, you're seeing this right now, and if you follow me on social media, you see a lot of this, and then you meet me in real life and I'm completely different. That is brand damaging, okay? Exactly the same as a corporate brand. The corporate brand needs to be rooted in authenticity, otherwise it will not resonate, it will be very short-lived, okay? You're very welcome, Roberto. De nada, es mi placer. Okay, we go back to our slides. So why do we need to scale the reach of our brand? There's a very, you know, there's an interesting saying that I like quite a bit, and it applies quite a bit as well, especially will resonate with fellow immigrants. Your network is your net worth. Your network is your net worth. I felt the poverty of my network quite acutely when I graduated from university, and when I was trying to find a job. It was really, really hard, and I never found a job in my field. Took me a long time to build to where I am today, and I'm grateful that my career took the turns that it did. But it's very hard to, you know, build anything without the currency that we get through our network. And look, the best example today is me being here today, right? Because I have a network, and I was able to message a couple of my great contacts that own awesome businesses in the area and say, please adopt me for a couple of hours. Please give me your conference room space. I'm able to be here today. I'm able to be focused, and I'm sparing you all the potential destruction that comes with an unhappy 4-year-old. So your network is your net worth. Look, when you're looking for a job, your network really is key and it's everything. A few of you said you're here because you are looking to brand yourself for the job search. Only 20% of jobs are filled through job ads. Only 20% of jobs are filled through job ads, and 80% of jobs are filled through what is very dramatically called the hidden job market. All that means is that 80% of jobs, well, some of them, of course, are filled through internal mobility and internal promotions or internal lateral moves, of course, but the remainder shows us that we are likely to hire people who are referred to us, right? We rely, and a lot of people say that's not fair. It shouldn't be like that. It's human nature. You know, we trust word of mouth. We trust recommendations when it comes to anything. So of course we will trust recommendations when it comes to hiring as well, or we tap into our own networks. So 80% of jobs filled without being advertised. If you don't have a network, you are limited to focusing on 20% of openings that are out there. And of course, in the economy that we're finding ourselves in right now, that becomes you know, quite stressful and daunting as a number because so many people are looking for a job. If you are an entrepreneur, or if you're an inspiring entrepreneur and you're looking to build a personal brand, I can tell you from all of my research and also all of my experience as an entrepreneur, and so Rob, this will be pertinent to you, it is so much easier to build a following through your personal brand than to build the following of your corporate brand. For a few reasons, I'll give you a couple of examples. But even from the standpoint of gaining, you know, media attention, getting PR exposure. When I was building up my business, my first business called Pronexia, at one point we decided that we were cool and awesome and doing great things and growing. And so we decided to hire a PR firm to help us in, you know, getting some media attention. Hired a PR firm, 10-month contract. They got us a media mention, 1. Mind you, it was in the Financial Post, so we still felt great, but it was 1. And then we said, look, the ROI here is very low. And we also know that getting, you know, media exposure as is does not mean the phones start ringing off the hook. It's then something that you use as part of your kind of partially social proof and just proof that you're, you know, an interesting business to be considering. But so ROI was not there. When I shifted the strategy from focusing on building the corporate brand fully to focusing on building a following around my personal brand, I got an incredible, you know, resonance in the media. Success Magazine, Inc., Forbes.com, Yahoo News, NASDAQ, you mentioned it, and likely I got the opportunity to be there. Did my camera freeze? Did I freeze? I just got a message that I froze. No?
No,
okay,
good.
Okay, Sandra, maybe it's maybe it's on your end. Okay, so let me quickly go back because we have a couple of questions, so we'll pause for a moment. Olivier, you said you had a question, so if you want to turn on your camera and I get to see you and say hi, and turn off your mute. Hi. Oh, can't hear you.
Hello?
Now I can hear you.
Yes. I was still in the process of putting together my question, so you definitely put me on the spot.
I like doing that, so that's good.
Take the pressure away from you. That's good. I'm helping. My question is, how do you create a brand without also looking, while keeping your authenticity, and then without like just looking for likes and attention? Attention is good, but how do you attract good attentions towards a way for you to showcase your skills or have your message heard from people? Because I struggle with you know, exactly what you are very good at, like constant messaging, constant content, but at the same time I don't want to do things just for attention.
Absolutely, 100% agree with you, and you shouldn't, because the moment you start doing it just for attention, people notice it, right? Like we all notice things and it becomes obvious, right? The reason that I post as much as I do is not because, you know, I have a quota that I'm filling, not because I feel that I must. It's because, you know, I come from a culture of censorship. I finally have the opportunity to speak and for my voice to be heard. I can't put a plug in it. So if I didn't think it would be too much, I would be posting a lot more, not every day, but multiple times. So for me, it's very authentic. You absolutely do not do that. We will jump into that portion and talk about finding what's right and doing things that are right to you, because the goal also is to find topics that you're really passionate and genuinely excited about. And that's what you talk about. A lot of people say, figure out what your audience wants to hear and talk about that. I disagree with that, specifically for personal branding. I think it comes off as forced and inauthentic, and I don't believe in that. But if you find things that are really burning inside and you want to talk about, it becomes much easier to start putting yourself out there and talking about it. But another answer to your question, and something extremely important, we have equated personal brand building to the quantity of content posted on LinkedIn. That is not what personal branding is, okay? It's one of the vehicles to gain exposure, absolutely. There are many others. There are also, let's be honest, tons of people that have huge networks and are very well known with no you know, presence online, and for them it's all offline. Granted, things are becoming more and more online, and of course with the pandemic, we've noticed that if you don't have that online presence, you're a bit more of a struggle than people who just have, you know, offline. So it's what's really important and the most important part. And what I tell my clients when they come to me and they say, okay, Marina, let's build a personal brand together. You tell me what to post. I'm going to start posting. And I say, I don't know what you should post. Do you know? We don't know. We have to do a lot of work first. We have to identify, well, what is that authenticity for you, right? One of the questions, is it important to be authentic? It's key. We have to identify, you know, who are you talking to? Not so that you can then, you know, sneak in and cater your content to them. No, so that you can make sure that you're excited about talking to those people, right? When I write a post and I write about immigrants, I am waiting for my fellow immigrants to rally around and tell me they've gone through the same things, right? That's one of the core topics for me. So you have to identify all those things, uncover the essence of your brand, the core values of your brand. That's all the stuff we're talking about today. What really, you know, fuels your fire. And then you also speak in a brand voice that is authentic to you. Again, I cannot underline that enough. That's what matters. Not everyone needs to be Gary Vaynerchuk, for example. If you see him, if you know of him online, he's loud, he swears a lot, big personality. He's not everybody's cup of tea, right? But there's also a Simon Sinek, who is intellectual, who speaks a lot quieter than I am right now. And I'm a yeller, I'm trying not to yell into the microphone. But he speaks a lot quieter. He has a quieter presence. He's an intellectual, right? He speaks slowly. And he has a massive following. So the more you are authentic, but it's hard to be authentic because you don't know very often what that means, right? Like, well, what's like, how am I authentic? How am I inauthentic? What does that mean? So that's why all that work, all that pre-work becomes crucial before you go and start putting yourself out there and exposing yourself to the world. Okay? And also, Natalia, I want to address your question as well, because you said, I want attention for my knitting business. So if I want attention for my knitting business, do I need to build my personal brand first, not build a brand around my knitting brand? I would say you do it in parallel, but you lead with your personal brand if you want quicker attention and a quicker return on investment. When you build in your corporate brand, and there's a lot of value in that, but it takes a lot of time because, of course, especially all the social media platforms, when it's a corporate brand, they want you to be putting a lot of dollars into it, right? They want you to be boosting everything, or otherwise you get no engagement and you're sitting there feeling discouraged, right? But they don't require that for personal pages. So you can be building a lot of momentum. You're always going to be mentioning knitting. You want to position yourself as, I am the knitting expert. That is very important. And so your corporate brand, your knitting brand will be getting exposure vis-a-vis what you're doing here, right? So for example, when I was getting all of the incredible media exposure, it was always Marina Byezhanova co-founder of Pronexia, right? And so, and by the way, by doing that, I brought my company's website to page 1 of Google search just with that strategy, completely organically. And, you know, it costs a lot of money otherwise to do that. And I'm in the headhunting world. There's about 1 million of us and about another 100,000 popping up every day, right? So very competitive space. So definitely I would recommend that you lead with your personal brand first. Let's see quickly if there are any other questions, and then we'll jump back in. I'm addressing your questions as we go through them, because otherwise I'm afraid that they will get buried. How do we manage to build our brand in a very shy, timid environment? What do you mean by that? If you could give me, and I don't know your name, if RN, you could give me a little bit more context, you can put them in notes if you prefer, and I would love to answer that. I worry sometimes about negative reactions. I triple think about what I write before I write it. This can be exhausting. This is true even with simple responses to questions. Oh, Michelle, you want to talk about negative reactions and trolling? I am your person, not because I troll, but because this is the story of my life. 2 days ago, a gentleman on my very adorable LinkedIn post talking about my very adorable 10-year-old called me the definition of vanity. The other day, the day after on the weekend, I had a gentleman that did not like a comment I left on somebody's post, and he came to educate me in private because he felt that I needed to be enlightened, and it was all done in the, it's okay, one day you will understand, you know, very patronizing. I've been called a loser. I've been on social. I've been attacked quite a bit. I don't get fazed by it, because even if I get, and those are a minority, right? Like how many people take the time of the day to really go and write? And I have compassion, right? Because if that's what you decide to do with your time, there's pain there, right? I don't think it's about me. We don't know each other. I think there's pain there. But that aside, if you are able, with your messaging, with your content, if you are able to positively touch the hearts, the soul, the minds, the journey of at least one other person, isn't it worth it? What do I care if a loser calls me a loser, because then who is the real loser? Or if I'm called a name, or if somebody really criticizes me, if at the end of the day, I'm going to get a message from somebody saying, hey, you talked about how much it sucked to, you know, be an immigrant in those early days, and I relate, and thanks for saying that. I forget about all those other messages. So again, if we are posting for the sake of posting and for the sake of just getting likes and comments, yeah, that's gonna hurt. If there is a bit more of a, you know, bigger mission, you are coming from, you know, a real genuine place, it matters less because you get a lot more positive comments and support than you get negativity. But it can get exhausting sometimes. Marina, what do you suggest for making the content visible to a bigger number of audience? I've been raising voice, writing articles, sharing answers, still not getting the traction I'd like to have. So something is missing there. What I recommend, Roberto, because I would have to take a look at your particular content to see why there might be an issue, drop me a line on LinkedIn. We'll book a time to call. We'll look at it together. We'll audit, and I'll tell you, I'm very honest. So as long as you're comfortable with that, I'll tell you exactly what might be going wrong. Family environments tends to lean towards not be noticed, be humble, definitely. Okay, I understand your question. So again, when you develop your personal brand and when you develop your content, you have to be completely authentic in what it is and who you are. Listen, there are different, you know, potential reasons why your type of content or your type of brand does not seem to fit the mold. You don't have to fit the mold. You don't have to also be boasty and be, you know, sharing, you know, boasty stuff on social, especially on LinkedIn. People are kind of liking that less and less, right? People are starting to like, you know, when there's value and when there's something tangible. And of course you can do it in a very soft and humble way. And I think most people do gravitate towards humility, that ability to be humble, than, you know, just the loud and obnoxious. But again, if you have specific questions for your situation, I would be very happy to answer you personally. Okay, I think that we went through all of them. If I forgot any questions, I will ask you guys to pin me personally, and we'll keep the conversation going. Okay, so we'll look at this and look at that. And so look, I wanted to show you something really cool and really interesting about corporate brand following versus personal brand following. This will be particularly interesting to those of you who are business owners or entrepreneurs, also those of you who are marketers, those of you in HR, because then likely you're involved with building the employer brand and having visibility for the business for the purposes of hiring. So look at something really interesting. Look at this. If we look at the following that Tesla and SpaceX have combined, so both combined, not separately, on Twitter, we get a following of over 17 million people. And I chose those brands specifically because those are very hot brands, especially recently for obvious reasons. So 17 million followers, not too shabby and impressive numbers. But look at the following Elon Musk has. Look how interesting. It's more than double the followers of two of his core brands. So think of all those millions of people that are following Elon Musk and his personal brand that don't even have enough interest to be following two of his, flagship brands and companies to see what's happening with those. The numbers are very similar across the board. I challenge you to do this exercise. It's really interesting. You look at the Virgin Group, by the way, saw their bad news yesterday. They're filing bankruptcy protection for their airlines, very sad. But look at the following that Virgin Group has on Twitter, 246,000 followers roughly. And of course, not surprising, it's Richard Branson. But surprising because it's a huge delta. And granted, there are different brands on Twitter. It's not just Virgin Group. There are different, right? There's Virgin Entertainment, there's the airlines, but even all of those combined, I believe don't even get to 1 million. And look at Richard Branson. What's interesting and what happens in situations like these is, if his businesses falter, if those brands start collapsing, right? As right now is happening with the airlines, although hopefully he will be able to recover it. All those brands start losing their worth, but the brand that is not losing its worth and that's keeping and growing its worth is the personal brand of the person behind it. Another great brand, Spanx by Sarah Blakely, the shapewear that's quite known. Look at the following on LinkedIn, 43,000. And you look at the following that the founder of the brand has on LinkedIn, she's getting close to 1 million. So quite interesting, right? Olivier, you've always done with hesitation for work. Of course, it's so much easier when it comes to others, but so much harder when it's ourselves. So yes, finding our own voice and branding ourselves is so much harder. And it's no surprise, if you guys think of, for example, how often do we, see things about our friends? Right? So give you a quick example. If a friend, you go for, let's say, dinner with a few friends, you're sitting outside socially distanced. You can say I'm still dwelling. But so you go with a bunch of friends and the friends all say, Olivier, or, Emily, you agree as well. So they say, what are my core strengths? Like, what's my unique value proposition? You have no problem to be, telling people it's this or it's that, it's this. And it's the most detested question, one of the most, after strengths and weaknesses in any interview, right? You sit down, they go, don't ask what's your unique value proposition, but they will ask, why should we hire you instead of somebody else? And you go, oh God, I hate that question, right? Although for somebody else, if a friend told you he or she struggled with that question, you would say, really, wow, you're so amazing. You have this, 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 and that. It's a sign that you're humble. It's a fantastic sign. That's what makes you relatable to people. But sometimes it helps to have that external help. That's why I have clients that come to me. They're extremely successful individuals, but they come to me because they need help figuring out their voice and their brand and packaging it all together. Hannah, that is very interesting. You said, I'm curious to hear the answer. I'm sorry if I missed Serenity's question about building brand in a new field. What exactly do you mean by that? You mean if, for example, you work in a specific industry and, okay, career change, okay? So here's also what's really interesting. When you've built your personal brand, meaning you've built your network, right? Because let's now just also remember that a personal brand means a network. When you have built your network, it becomes really easy for your network to support you in so many different fields and so many changes that you might be embarking on. I'll share a very personal story with all of you because I like, instead of, you know, talking in generalities, giving examples and especially personal examples. So I told you I have my business, my headhunting firm that I started, and Hannah says, sure, but I have not built the network yet. Well, that's great. So then you're not rebranding, you're just branding. So everything we're talking about will apply. But let me tell you a little bit about the whole idea of, you know, change in course, career transition, be that if you're an entrepreneur or be that if you're transitioning in a different field, and the power of having a network. So I've had my business, my headhunting firm, for 10 years. Successful business. We went to a 7-figure revenue by year 4, expanded, opened an office out west, you know, got a, you know, fancy looking office on top of the world. Felt really good about myself as a business owner and as an entrepreneur. And then COVID hit, right? And I realized that one of the worst businesses to own, one of the worst, there are many different ones, but one of the worst businesses to own is a hiring business when companies decide not to hire. And so I went from feeling on top of the world and everything is great and the list of projects and mandates to all of them one by one closing. Close, hold, not hire, and going to zero. I spent the first weekend of lockdown in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to move. I could not parent, I could not eat, I could not shower, I could not do anything. I thought, I'm losing it all. I'm losing it all. I'm losing my business. I'm losing my financial stability. I'm losing my office. I'm losing my employees. I'm losing it all. The whole weekend, I did not get out of bed. Parenting was not happening either. I was paralyzed and mortified. And then what I did on Monday was I went on LinkedIn and I wrote a post. Not because I was looking for likes or followers, but because I just needed to express and put myself out there. And I shared how tough everything was. I was very frank. I was very straight up. And I said, it's tough to be an entrepreneur. It's tough to be a leader. It's tough to be a mother. It's tough to be anything right now. Tough. And I shared it all. And the outpouring of support and community that rallied around me that I got was nothing I expected. I cannot tell you how many tears I have shed out of pure joy and appreciation. I actually had no idea I had that much of a brand and that much of a following. I had no idea. Every time I would get another message saying, what do you need? Do you want to work on a project together? How can I help you? You can do it. I would just cry, but happy tears. It felt so incredible. And so I started getting projects. I got the opportunity to completely change course and rebuild into very different lines of business, such as helping people with career transition, helping people with personal brand architecture, because I realized that as my corporate brand was completely on fire, it was somewhere between my metaphors and visions were between, it's either on fire or it's like sinking in water somewhere deep. It was one of the two. I realized that my personal brand was what allowed me to keep things afloat. And that was an incredible realization to me because of COVID. So when you build a very strong personal brand, doesn't matter if it's predicated on a specific industry or specific area. People buy from people, people hire people. And so if you do have a strong network and if you do have a strong presence, that's what can save you even in those most challenging times. So that's my very personal share for you of many tears shed in the last few weeks. And so Tess, yes, I'm happy to talk about career transition. And if there's anything that I don't cover in this workshop, you can, again, always, just so that all of you know, find me on LinkedIn, connect, send me a message. I respond to every single message that I receive. And if you want to jump on a call, I'm happy to do that too. Focus on my brand and myself. Okay, So we're going to move on to the rest, but all of those questions, as I said, if I don't get to them, I'm available for you so that we can speak one-on-one as well. Let me jump back into my screen. Okay, another thing that is really important if you are an entrepreneur or if you're in HR building a personal brand, 98% of people trust recommendations that come from other people over recommendations that come or messages that come from brands. 98% of people. And I'm going to tell you something even cooler. People we don't even know. We would rather trust a recommendation from a complete stranger who's recommending, you know, a restaurant, a product, the service. We don't even know this person. We don't even know why they're recommending it, but we tend to trust it more than the same messaging coming from a brand. So this is really important. Again, you were asking me about the knitting business, or if you're an entrepreneur, business owner in general, again, or you build employer branding campaigns for your organization if you're in HR, something really important to remember. And of course, not too shocking, because we know of the big rise of the influencer culture. So now we get into the how-to, the question that many of you are asking, and what we all should be doing before we start, you know, putting ourselves out there or creating content. We first need to take the steps to dig deep and to brand ourselves. So here are the 3 components of a strong personal brand. Mind you, those are 3 of 7 components of a strong corporate brand. These are just much more pertinent to you building a personal brand. Your personal brand needs to be meaningful. We'll unpack what that means. It needs to be memorable. We'll unpack what that means, right? One of the questions was, I am putting myself out there, you know, I am creating content and it's not generating anything, it's not picking up. So either we need to, maybe there's something missing as far as that, you know, essence and the special something, the special sauce of your personal brand, or you don't have a strategy to make it memorable enough, or your personal brand is just not likable. Again, when I say likable, I don't mean likable as in, you know, I'm so sweet and I'm so nice and, you know, I'm likable. No, not universally likable. Likable to the people that you want to be following you, the people that you want to have follow your personal brand and what you're doing. Again, an example of Donald Trump. We wouldn't say he has a universally likable personality. He's certainly highly likable by the people that you know, vote for him and follow him. So those are the 3 things that we're going to unpack right now. When we talk about creating a brand that is meaningful, and this, Olivier, will also answer your question of, you know, well, how do I put myself out there? It feels awkward. It feels uncomfortable. I don't want to be a phony. I want to be authentic. Again, to be authentic, you need to know what being authentic really means as far as you're concerned. So those are the 3 things that we're going to be looking at. How to uncover your why. That is Simon Sinek's Why. And if you haven't read Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, I really, really strongly recommend it, especially in those, you know, months that we've got so much introspection going on. It's a wonderful and really important book. At the very least, you can watch his TED Talk. We will look at uncovering your UVP, your unique value proposition. And we will also look at identifying your core values. And we're a lot of people, and you know what, also a lot of companies, because before working on personal branding, I did a lot of work in the company culture assessment and working with organizations on their company culture space. And core values is something that are really, you know, still a bit of a mystery to people, but we'll demystify it and we'll make it really, really obvious. Thank you, Roberto, that you agree with me about Simon Sinek. Hi, Marina. I'm working with a corporate and my work does not entail anything related to content marketing, etc. How do you suggest I can build my personal brand in real time in the corporate sector where the image of the company matters more than a personal one? The book is Start With Why. Simon Sinek. Listen, that is a really great question. You know, how do I build my personal brand where there's the corporate brand and you have to stay within the constraints of it? You know, again, message me and we can talk specifically about your particular case because it depends, right? Maybe your personal brand is predicated on really corporate thought pillars, which will align with the corporate brand. It won't clash, right? If you really want to build a personal brand, for example, I don't know, as an influencer in, I don't know, let's say I want to be an influencer in fashion and, you know, here are my really awesome, you know, face masks that I recently got and let me talk about it. That's all fantastic. But if I work for, you know, McKinsey, they might think that this is a little bit, you know, outside of their comfort zone. Then the question gets itself, you know, are you at the right company if your values, your why, your UVP is so disconnected from that of the organization where you're working? That's another question, but we can talk about it separately to talk about it in a way that's really pertinent to you. What about navigating personal branding as a woman versus a man? I feel like we tend to be under more scrutiny and judged more harshly. Yeah, maybe, but it's also easier to stand out, Alexandra, because as women, we tend to suffer from the imposter syndrome more than our male colleagues. You will see a lot more men building very strong personal brands, a lot more men being very active on social, and a lot less women. So are you going to be judged? Are you going to be under scrutiny? Yeah, of course, but you're going to be you know, judged under scrutiny the more you put yourself out there online or offline. That's part of it. But there's a lot more space right now because a lot of women are still overthinking things, as we tend to do very often. How do you stand out in a market niche beauty influencer that's very competitive, saturated, with a very strong strategy? Look, I stood out again in a niche, you know, in the market of headhunters and recruiters. That is not only saturated, that is also a disliked industry, right? And again, was able to bring my business to page 1 of Google search, and was able to make a name for myself as well. So if you follow those steps, you will be able to. Natalia says major imposter syndrome. That's all of us. Girlfriend, that's all of us, but we've got to work on it because it does us no favors. And women, just be brave. We're awesome. Exactly. I agree with that. Thank you, Roberto. Okay, so quickly about Simon Sinek and the golden circle of why, if it is not something that you're familiar with, but I really hope that you really look into it as much as possible. It was a game changer and a life changer for me and all of my clients, so recommend it. So what the golden circle of why means is we're all very focused on what we do, right? Sure, you would all agree. We all know what we do and we're very focused on getting better at it and focusing on that. We then tend to know how to do it, right? So for example, let's say I'm a personal brand architect. I work with people on building their personal brands, packaging them, uncovering them, scaling the reach. So that's what I do. How do I do it? We do it through personalized sessions. We do a lot of introspection work, a lot of homework, a lot of worksheets, building plans of action, building content plans. That's how. But why do I do it? And you know what's really fascinating, and why is it important to know why? Is because that's your fulfillment. And that is part of your secret sauce. Because once you uncover your why, that is when you are really fulfilled and other people can tell. And so then if you're creating your content and you're creating it from the place of, you know, that the place of why, you have to share those things. You have to talk about those things. They will be perceived as authentic and you will still attract criticism. That will happen no matter what you're talking about. We're talking about, you know, babies and kittens. You will always get criticized, but more people will really start connecting with you on the basis of who you really are, and will start noticing that you really are doing something meaningful. When we're talking about doing something meaningful, you know, there's another interesting misconception. Corporate brands and personal brands. We often think that meaningful means you are changing the world, or you're doing, you know, your work has something to do with social impact. And it's not necessarily the case. Actually, it's not the case. Not necessarily. I was trying to be, politically correct. It's not the case at all. The meaningful work that you're doing is what brings meaning to you, what's connected to your deep core. And we'll talk about a little bit about how to uncover that. And that's a lot of work that goes into that, but we'll try to do a little mini snippet of that. When you do work that is meaningful to you, because of where you come from, that's what people feel. And that becomes the core and the basis of a strong personal brand. I will give you some examples. So Simon Sinek, when he came up with the idea of the golden circle of why. It's also, by the way, a very interesting story, how he came up with it. He was in a successful career, doing really well. Everything was going well. Knew what he was doing, knew how to do it really well. But then started realizing that something was missing. He was doing things well. He was successful. He was succeeding, but he was not feeling fulfillment. Very interesting these days, during the pandemic, I've had a lot of people come to me and say, my job is safe. I'm so fortunate. I'm doing really well, but something's missing. I don't feel fulfilled. I'm not jumping out of bed in the morning. It's a very interesting time where I see a lot of people asking those questions, how do I find fulfillment? And so Simon, after doing a lot of, self-exploration and a lot of digging, figured out and understood that unless you really get to the core of why you do the things that you do, not the thing, not just one thing, but in general, why you do the things that you do, unless you do that, you're not finding, as Roberta said, your true purpose, okay? Purpose sounds like a very big and daunting word, right? For all of us, when we're asked, what's your purpose in life? What did you come to this planet to accomplish? That's very daunting and hard to think about. So we start with the why. What is it that fuels the fire inside? So Simon started sharing this concept and this idea with friends. They would gather together in, friends' living rooms, have those, white flip charts and those, circular plastic plates of vegetables and dip, and they would sit there and he would explain very excitedly the concept of why. Very interesting that now he has a following of millions of people. He gets paid a lot of money to do that exact same thing he did in friends' living rooms, but to do on big stages. Simon's why is to inspire people to do the things that inspire them so that together we can change our world. What's really powerful here and what I want to draw attention to is the our world piece, because you see, he's not saying we need to change the world, our world. This comes from the deep need that he has to change his reality, to change his world, to make a shift. And that is what he realized that is what his why is going on. You're so right, Adriana. Pandemic has us thinking we shouldn't take anything for granted and life is too short to just breathe while doing uninspiring work. That's awesome. That would be a really awesome LinkedIn post, just like that. A lot of people would relate to you. I'll tell you another story of a why that really is something that I love sharing, and something that I think one of the most powerful whys that I've ever encountered, and it's somebody that I know quite well. And I'm going to stop sharing the screen just so that I can see some of your faces. And if more of you can show me your faces, that would be great as well. So a friend of mine who allowed me to share her story with you. Her name is Sana Brock, and she owns an awesome business here in Montreal called Luxe Decor. Sana is an interior designer. And if you were to ask her a few years ago why she's an interior designer, she would just tell you, I don't know, I really enjoy it. Like, it fuels my fire. When I see, when I go into, I said, what's your favorite part of interior design? And she said, Marina, when I go into people's homes and I see those reveals, and her, how she does it is in that, kind of TV show style. She takes all of your, desires, requirements, specs, a budget, then does the magic. You leave, they come, they set everything up, you walk in, you go, and there's a reveal and there's tears and all sorts of emotion. So she actually does it like that, which I think is really cool. I'm sure we've all seen those TV shows. And so she said, that's my favorite moment. My favorite moment is when people look around. His why seems a little vague to me. We can also talk about it a bit separately, Petra, and I would be happy to clarify and give a bit more context as to also how he arrived at it. Essentially, his work, I can because it's Simon Sinek, so I have to say it now. His work is to help people find their why, because he feels that if you are inspired to find your why, you will change your world. And then together we're all changing our world. So that's his why. Sana. So she said that is the moment that I cherish the most. That moment when people see the place, and they have the tears and that moment. And so I said, but why? What's about that moment? Like I can relate to how like, okay, that's cool, like that's cute, but would that really make me want to jump out of bed in the morning to create that? No. So why? And so you see, Sana, she lives in Montreal, but she was born in South Korea. And at the age of 4, her family abandoned her. Really just abandoned her with, a bag, a plastic bag with her documents and with a little note saying that, they weren't going to keep her. You think about it, if any of you are parents, 4-year-old, that's not a baby, right? It gives me chills to think about it because I have a 4-year-old. They abandoned her. She got picked up by an orphanage, and she was later on adopted by a family in Canada. And she had a rocky journey, even in Canada. So without going into many details, she had to move many times. She had to, go live on her own at the age of 16. She didn't get the opportunity to go to university because she needed to hustle and she needed to, make money and pay the bills and put herself through, through CEGEP, through the pre-university program. And so she became an interior designer by complete fluke. And then one day she realized that the reason that she's so passionate about it and the reason that that moment when her clients see the space is so meaningful to her is that her why is to help people turn their house into a home. She realized that throughout the years, throughout growing up, she always had a house. She had a roof over her head, except for those couple of hours on the street. But she didn't have a home, that sense of a home. And so that is her why now. She comes into your house and she creates that feeling of a home. I've told this story many times. She thinks there's absolutely nothing special about her story, so she does not share it with anybody publicly. I do on her behalf, and I get goosebumps every single time. Thank you, Antoniette. I will tell her that you said is beautiful because, as I said, she thinks that there's nothing special, and she's surprised every time I ask her if I'm allowed to share it. And let's just jump back to the slides.
About the
Yeah, many are wondering, asking the question, what if? That is an amazing story. Thank you very much. Okay, so let me just quickly jump into here. And I would love to also share with you my why. And so my why is to help you find your unique voice and scale its reach. As I briefly mentioned to you before, and yes, if I can just please ask you to mute your mic. Please keep your lovely faces on. I love seeing them, but if you can just mute your mics, that would be great. Her name, Fanny, the name of the company is Luxe Decor. Here, I'm gonna write it in. And you can check them out on Instagram. Oops, I sent it to Michelle privately for some reason. Let me just quickly. And you know what? Here's her name. And if you can all message her on LinkedIn and tell her to share her story publicly with people, that would be great. Let's help her scale the reach of her voice, which is my why. The reason this is my why and the reason this is really important to me, it is stunning. Her work is absolutely amazing, Natalia. So I grew up in the Soviet Union, in the culture, of course, and the, epicenter of censorship. Was born to a Jewish father, which is also, I don't have my father's last name. My parents didn't want people to realize that I was Jewish. And so culture of censorship, I often heard my parents talk in whispers trying to understand what they're talking about and figure it out. A lot of things were not to be talked about. I quickly learned that as well. Quickly learned to, bite my tongue if I wanted to express myself. Certainly have always been very outspoken inside. And so I realized that to me, having a voice and being able to expand the reach of that voice is the absolutely most priceless commodity that one can have, the most priceless right. When I came to Canada, I was thinking, wow, I'm finally in the land I'm finally in the land of freedom of speech. I can say anything, which is certainly true. But then for many years, nobody was interested in hearing my voice because most people couldn't understand what the hell I was saying. Because as I said, I was very awkward. I had a very strong accent. And so again, I had this voice and I felt that I was constantly suppressing it. So to me today, having the opportunity to express myself, having the opportunity to scale the reach of my voice is a privilege unlike absolutely anything else. And being able to do that for other people, I can quite honestly tell you that there is absolutely nothing that can bring me more professional fulfillment. And so I will give you a couple of exercises. I'm wondering if we will have, because I want to make sure that we have enough time, but I did want to give you a couple of exercises to help you, kind of start arriving at finding your why. So I'll tell you what a couple of those exercises are. There's number one. Number one is your lifeline exercise. Here's what you do. You don't do that right now because that one takes a lot of time. You're going to take a big sheet of paper. The bigger, the longer, the better that you can find, or just put a bunch together. You're going to draw a line, a horizontal line in the middle. And you're going to, the first number you're going to put there in the middle is the age at which you remember yourself. It's different for all of us. And in, let's say, blocks of 5 years, you're going to write up until today, your current age. And then what you're going to do, and as I said, not right now because this does take a lot of time and a lot of self-reflection, you're going to think of all of the high points of your life and all of your low points of your life. And not necessarily big, not necessarily anything, tragic or anything to, things that really happened to you. Could include some, but predominantly just things that marked you and why. Okay. And then what you want to do is you want to start looking for common denominators. We all live very complex lives. It's not going to be one big common denominator that will connect every single thing, of course not. But there will be one that will tie things together. For Sana, it's the concept of house, home, living, where is she living. For me, it was my voice, right? I'm not allowed to speak here. Most of my highlights, if you see my lifeline, will revolve around getting an opportunity to speak. I spoke at a conference here. I spoke at an event here. I was able to express here. I inspired somebody else to speak up. It will be all around that for me. Okay? And here's a second exercise. Second exercise is you will write down the list of all of your biggest professional achievements. Not just professional. You can do two lists, professional and personal. You will make lists of all of your achievements. And again, you can look for common denominators. And then you will choose one of the achievements that you're most proud of. Most proud of. It can be personal. But it has to be really authentic. Often, let's say if we have kids, we say, having my child is my biggest achievement, but like, is it your biggest achievement or you just feel like I have to say that it is my biggest achievement? Choose the one that feels authentic, okay? And then you do an exercise that's called 7 Whys. You can do it with somebody. So yes, Emily, start with why is there's start with why, and then there's the follow-up book, and maybe also, I think that's the one you refer to, it's called Find Your Why, that gives you a lot of exercises as well, okay? So you can also get that book. What you want to do, and what Simon recommends when you're doing those exercises, if you're going to pair yourself up with somebody who's going to be a sounding board, it has to be somebody who doesn't know you that well. It's hard to find somebody who doesn't know you that well and is going to spend, 4-hour sessions with you doing this stuff, but if you can find, that's great. Why should it be somebody that doesn't know you that well? For a couple of reasons. When we know each other, we tend to, just kind of say the nicer things and not point things out because, we're nice people. And also number two, we feel we know the other person. So we start leading in a direction, right? Oh, I know this about you. Oh, for sure it's that. You don't want to do that when you're doing this, this exercise. You really want to have somebody as a sounding board, or you can do it alone. And so here's what you do. Let's say you're saying that the core achievement, the biggest achievement that you have. So I'll tell you. If I were to think off the top of my head, my biggest achievement, I will say it was speaking in Saudi Arabia at a conference at a business conference. It blows my mind that that actually happened. And so then you will ask me, or I will ask myself, who cares? Okay. So again, it's hard to do with somebody who knows you because they're not going to, when you come out with something you're really excited about, they're not going to be like, so what? But the idea is you have somebody who plays the role of a skeptic, or you are the skeptic, and you go, so what, who cares? And I'm going to say, I'm going to need a rather long sheet of paper. That's great. You can just like piece a few together, Cheryl. But so you ask me, so, okay, so who cares? You spoke in Saudi Arabia, who cares? And I'm going to say, no, you don't understand. It's Saudi Arabia. Like what women, female entrepreneurs get to speak in Saudi Arabia. And you say, why, who cares? And like, well, you don't understand. Like you have to like there's so many rules and regulations. You have to watch what you're saying. Like, can you imagine? And you say, so what? And I say, but don't you understand? Like I'm half Jewish. I'm from a culture of censorship. And here I am exposing myself with my opinions and my voice and etc. in that complete land of unpredictability and censorship. And you go, but so what, right? And so you see how we're gonna get inevitably, if this is the first time we're doing this exercise, we're going to get to the fact that I'm all about censorship, overcoming censorship. My voice is being heard, okay? So similar things will happen to you if you start doing this exercise. You start getting to the bottom of who cares and why does that matter? Would it be beneficial to be the same age range? You mean, Erin, with the person who is your buddy, who is questioning you? Is that what you meant? Yes? Not at all, doesn't matter at all. All of my clients are substantially older than me. It does not matter at all. You just need somebody who is skeptical and somebody who's going to be asking, but why? Sounds good? There are other exercises, but this is personal branding 101. So we're gonna start with that. We're gonna start slow. But those exercises are really interesting. And again, I encourage you all to reach out to me and tell me how they're going for you and if you're having any blocks whatsoever.
Just to make sure I got it right. First, we have to think about our line of life, what happened, highs and lows in the life, and then list the biggest achievements and say why they are that biggest and the most important one. And then I didn't get how it gets to who cares and why it matters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me then, again, so those are two separate exercises. One, which is the lifeline, the highs and the lows. You look at the common denominators of what makes you tick, what makes you consider something a high and a low. Okay. So that's the first one. You start looking for those common denominators of what really, is the for you, or what really is the for you, okay? That's why I said we don't necessarily include, let's say life tragedies. Well, of course, it's a low point for all of us, right? So more things that will stand out to you and as far as your achievements, and you go, wow. It thinks you're like, well, but of course it's an achievement. Anybody would consider it so. No, not everybody. If I proudly listed out some of my achievements that I'm excited about, there's some that you'd be like, okay, and I wouldn't be so excited about that one. We're all very different people. So that's exercise number one. It helps you start uncovering your common denominators. Number two is where you pick just one achievement and you do the why. What it helps you uncover is, again, the essence of why something matters to you so much. Right? So for example, to me, let's say going to Saudi Arabia is a big achievement. Thank you, Vincenzo. It is a big deal for a woman to be invited to speak. I appreciate it. But the core of that was not, thank you, Lourdes. Yes, it was a big deal. Thank you. I was also scared out of my brains when I arrived because I also read so much. And in the end, it was a much more, pleasant and welcoming experience. But I was stressed out because I didn't know what to expect, to the point where they fingerprint you when you arrive at the airport. And my hands were sweating so much, like pouring, that I couldn't get fingerprinted. And I just wanted to be very under the radar, like fingerprint and go. And I was there for 10 minutes and they were getting annoyed with me. And I was just like, I'm sorry. And it was quite something. I have a lot of stories there. But the thing is, if we were starting to challenge me and say, why is it important? Why is it important? Why is it important? If to me, the core of my why and essence was, for example, women's rights, we would have arrived that that's the core. That's why after 7 whys, I say, because I'm a woman, and I was one of very few women there. The organization that sent me, we were, I think, 40 people. I was the only woman and the only person to speak, right? So if my why had been, female, gender parity and, anything around being female, we would arrive at the fact that that's why. If it would have been, I don't know, validation as an entrepreneur, because I was invited to speak, like, let's say thought leadership is the most important part to me, thought leadership. I was invited as a thought leader to speak about corporate values. We would have gotten to the fact that that's recognition. I'm officially a thought leader if I'm one of you being invited to, be on stage and speak. But no, to me, it's about the fact that censorship, and here I am using my voice. Okay, so I hope that helps. And again, if you want to run through your own, because we all have very specific and particular, of course, stories and situations, I'm happy to do something on the, more individual level. All right, back to my share screen, and we're going to talk about core values. As I already said, I love this topic because there's a lot of misconception around core values and what they really are, what our core values are, and not only as far as our personal brand, but corporate branding as well. As I told you, that was the topic of my talk in Saudi Arabia. It was corporate core values. I've also done a lot of company culture work, so I've talked to organizations about their core values, and a lot of ambiguity there. So before we jump into what the core values are, I will ask you to, once again, drop me in chat what your core values are. Integrity, honesty, integrity, respect, effort, trust of my family, learning, empathy, responsibility, helping people, integrity, transparency, social justice, Awesome, very interesting. We're going to do a very quick exercise right now, okay? If you have your phone nearby, I will ask you to take your phone. And I will ask you to text 5 people without giving them any context. Not 5 in a group message, but one by one. And say, hey, we'll explain later. I'm in a workshop right now. What are the adjectives you would use to describe me? Or what are the first things that come to mind? Again, in form of adjectives, because you don't want somebody to say, I don't know, like friend, parent, adjectives that you would use to describe me. Want to do a thumbs up when you're done? And you could just copy and paste that message so everybody gets the same one to make things quicker. Okay, I will assume most of you are done. And if not, as you finish it, in the background, I will be talking about core values. Awesome, you're done, great. So look, what you will find is that you're gonna find two things. First of all, it's a feel-good exercise, because you're gonna get a whole bunch of good things about yourself. So I love this exercise, it makes people feel good. But what you will find is that people will be writing a lot of the same words that you wrote here. The thing is, those words are your brand descriptors. They describe who you are, but they are not necessarily your core values, your deep core values. The difference between brand descriptors and core values, I don't think I included a slide on that, but the difference between brand descriptors and core values is brand descriptors are certainly who you are. You know, they are things that are important to you. There are things, you know, they're those things on the surface. They're those external things, right? So if people were to describe you, they would say, you know, you're somebody who's resilient. You're somebody who, you know, is all about empowerment. You're very encouraging, you know, as a person or a friend, all those things that you wrote. It is extremely important to know your brand descriptors, because that will also determine that, again, see here, we're shaping all the different components of your personal brand, and also the things that you're going to be talking about when you create your content plan, etc. Core values, however, are much deeper and much clearer. When you say integrity, or when you say transparency, and let's say I say, my brand descriptor is also integrity, it's also transparency, we might mean very different things, okay? So when we're just using a brand descriptor and we're saying that's a core value, we might not be on the same page as far as, you know, sharing the definition of it. And I'm often seeing that, as again, as I said, in companies, when you go into companies and they have a list of values and it's those standalone words, they don't necessarily tell me, you know, what's really on the inside, what are those true deep core values. And that's number one. Number two, your core values need to be non-negotiable no matter what. Your brand descriptors, they describe who you are as a person. They don't necessarily need to always apply. They're situational, they're contextual. Your core values are not contextual. Your core values are completely black and white. One of the authors I really like is Pat Lencioni. I really like his work. I really like his books. And one of the things he says is your core values need to have the ability to inflict pain on you. Okay, and I'll give you a personal example of what that means to me. So core values are non-negotiable, not something that you would compromise no matter the situation, okay? And they have to be really clear. I'll give you, of course, a few examples. So for example, just to quickly refer to transparency. Let's say transparency could be, I'm always really, it's Pat Lencioni, let me write it down. So for example, transparency could mean I'm always open, honest, completely transparent. But always are there, and maybe you are that brutally honest person who's just always going to be, you know, completely open book. But always or not? You know, if you are in the corporate setting, if you are in an interview, will you be completely transparent with absolutely anything asked of you? Or will you, you know, play a bit of a game that, you know, is part of it? That's a question to ask. And so whenever you have a core value, you really need to ask yourself, well, is this really deeply, truly non-negotiable for me? Of course, we'll give you examples. So a couple of corporate examples that I like quite a bit, because you can see that once you take a descriptor, once you take a word and you turn it into a statement, you turn it into a sentence, that is when you're very clear as to, or as clear as possible, as to what is meant. Google has a bunch of values. These are the ones that stand out to me because I believe that they provide a lot of clarity. Especially great just isn't good enough. That doesn't work for anybody, right? Right? It's saying, you know, you can never, I want to not be too honest, but I can't. I like that. I was speaking to somebody like that too also yesterday, rest day. She says, for better or worse, I just spit it out. You want to understand why, and then that will become a really strong core value. So great just isn't good enough. That's not for everybody, right? Like what, this whole culture of like, I'm never satisfied with the quality, you can always do better, might not be for everybody. Nike, again, a lot of different values. Those are interesting ones. Those are very clear, especially we're on the offense always. Again, doesn't necessarily, you know, resonate with everybody. Not everybody would support it, but that's their core value. It's very clear. I'd love to share some of my values with you as well. Give more than you take. It's really important to me, no matter what. Be an optimist. You know, even in those times when I was lying in bed and staring at the ceiling, making random calculations in my mind, wondering whether, you know, I would be able to pay the bills. If not, what was going to happen? I still emerged very quickly into thinking, you know, ça va bien aller, as we're saying in Quebec, it's all going to work out. Being a lifelong pursuit of growth is non-negotiable for me. And more important than anything else, censorship is evil. So, you know, when I spoke to all of you at the beginning about negative comments and trolls, because I told you I get all kinds. And sometimes in direct messages, sometimes in the public forum, people will tell me if they dislike me or, you know, will actually call me names on LinkedIn. I have never, and then I get a whole bunch of people who support me and are very kind saying, block that person, delete the comment. I have never once deleted a comment, no matter how hurtful, never once blocked the person. And I am not saying that other people should do the same. No, you stay within the, you know, framework of what's comfortable to you. I cannot possibly delete or block because to me, censorship is evil. And because to me, it's not only when it's convenient to me, you know, censorship is evil, I don't have censorship anymore, I'm gonna speak. No, it applies to everybody, even when I don't like it, even when it hurts, even when it's painful. I do not delete, I do not block. Mind you, I will respond. And depending on the mood I'm in, I might, you know, clap back, or I might just, you know, respond more often than not with a laughing emoji and an emoji of the sun and wishing the person all the best. But when you are creating those values, you really, really, really want to think of things that are not negotiable and dig deep. When you're writing that value, really think, okay, but always though, I'll give you an example of a client of mine, and I love this example. So when we were creating his core values, he said, Marina, one of my core values is family first. And I said, that's awesome. And he's a family man, he's great. So he said, family first. I said, that's great. But is it always? And he said, of course it's always. It's always. Family man, it's always. I said, okay, that's great. I said, let me give you an example. Just challenge you for a moment and try to create a scenario where maybe it's not always. I said, okay. I told him, listen, what if, and I knew his big goal. His big goal is he wants to be a global thought leader on a giant stage. He gave me a list of people he really admires and follows, and he wants to be on stage, you know, delivering a keynote. That's his dream. That's what he's working towards. You know, in 5 years, that's what he wants. And I know the people that he really respects in the field and admires and reads their books and follows, etc. So I said, listen, here's a scenario for you. You get a call from person ABC. And I know that's who you really want to be one day. And he says, look, you've been on my radar. I've been following your work. You're incredible. I'm hosting a summit in Europe. We only do it once every 10 years. Here's the list of who will be invited. And he's listing straight to your heart, one by one, every person that you admire. But you are going to be the keynote all expenses paid. And of course, you're getting paid speaking fees. As I'm telling him this scenario, you can imagine his face, right? This is his dream. He just goes, oh, and he's like, uh-huh. And I said, but it so happens that it falls on the same day as your daughter's dance competition that she has been preparing for and waiting for and very excited to be participating. What's it gonna be? Is it gonna be family first? Are you gonna be at the dance competition? Or are you on a plane flying to the event of your dreams? And he goes, well, listen, I would talk to my daughter and I would explain to her. I was like, no. Your daughter's a teenager. She's gonna roll her eyes. She's gonna say, whatever, Dad. Have mom FaceTime. And she's gonna go to her room. She's gonna slam the door. It's not about your daughter, it's about you. What are you gonna choose? And so he thought, and he said, you know what, Marina, I would go to that event because I know that if I didn't, I would forever regret it. So I would go because to me, living a life of no regret is so important. And I know I would regret it. And so I told him, listen, your core value is not family first. Your core value is living a life of no regret. What that means, because you're a family man, is that 99% of the time, you will choose your family because you're a family man and because you know that if you don't choose your family, you will regret it. And you want to live a life of no regret. But family first is not the core value. So he didn't like it at first, but then he really agreed. And so that's where I challenge you all to always look deep and think, but is that always? Would I really sacrifice no matter what in order to live that core value? Let me quickly see if you have any questions, and then we continue into finishing the why and then the what. That really resonates. What if you find you actually have compromised on your core values to your regret, but worse, you may even do it again? Look, do we all? No, but we all make mistakes, and we all, you know, I'm on a panel tomorrow for McGill, also for Power Skills on failure. That topic gives me so much stress. Failure is not one of my core values or areas of comfort. But of course, we'll fail, we'll make mistakes, of course. But the second part of what you're saying, Michelle, is really interesting. Worse, you may even do it again. Are there core values? Likely not. Likely not. Thank you, Valerie. I'm looking forward to it too. I'll meditate before I do it so I get more comfortable talking about failure. So yes, so if you're going to do it again, it's likely not a core value. Again, situations are particular. I don't like always talking in absolutes. You can message me. We can chat about your particular situation and see why it is that you believe something is a core value, but you would not necessarily, walk the walk in that case. Finally, your unique value proposition. We don't have a ton of time. Do we have some time to still talk about it? We do a bit. So your unique value proposition is something really important and something that you arrive upon once you have understood your core values, once you have understood your brand descriptors. This is where they will come into play. All those words you were saying to describe yourself, and why we did the exercise with the people that you texted is to see are you self-aware? You know, when I did this exercise many years ago, many people messaged me and said intimidating. And I was shocked. I did not think I was intimidating. So I had to think about quite a bit about how I was, that perception people had of me, right? Because a personal brand is perception. So I had to think of, what it is that I'm doing to come off as intimidating, why are people saying that? But then more often than not, the things that people will say will validate what you think of yourself. And if there is that synergy, those become your actual true brand descriptors. And again, very quickly on the difference. My brand descriptor is I'm outspoken. My core value is censorship is evil. Okay, so outspoken can mean a lot of things. A lot of people are outspoken. A core value is that really strong, non-negotiable. How do you promote these values and brand descriptors? How I promote these values, I live them. I live them and people feel it and they gravitate towards it. That's number one. Number two, I make almost all of my decisions, if not all of my decisions, through the prism of my core values. When I have prospective clients, when I have people that approach me to work together, for example, helping them build their personal brand architecture, we have a chat and I see whether we share those core values. I work with people who give more than they take. I work with people who are, lifelong learners. I work with people who, are anti-censorship. They don't have to be to the extent that I am, but we do have to connect on those core values. If we do not, they have to be an optimist. The other day I was speaking with somebody and just a Debbie Downer. Everything had a negative spin. And every time I was like, but this is the good news, but like, yeah, but when she asked me, what I offered as far as, my service offering, I said, I don't think it's, I don't think there's anything I offer that would be a fit or would be pertinent. I'm being very honest with you guys. To me, living my core values is very important. I make decisions through them. How I promote my brand descriptors, I keep them in mind very strongly as guiding my unique value proposition, which I will share with you now, and guiding my content as well. And always I use both to remind myself who I am and what I bring to the table and what makes me unique. It's so helpful to define those, especially if you have an imposter syndrome or an imposter syndrome moment, which we all do. It's very important to go back to looking at, I'm going to answer that one, Natalia. It's very important to be able to, I lost my train of thought because you asked about family, and that's a big topic. It's very important to know what your values are and what your brand descriptors are and your UVP so that you can counterbalance those moments of imposter syndrome, which again, we all have. That's what helps me. I go and look at them and I say, okay, well, this is what I bring to the table. This is what I'm capable of doing. The moments of self-doubt, the moments of people trolling me, I will go and say, well, this is what I stand for. This is what I bring to the table. We will need another 2 hours if we're going to be talking about family stuff. Yes, we do. How do I deal with family members who don't share your same core values? No, I do not fire my family members, but it can affect very many things. I certainly express my opinions, but listen, give you an example. My father he's really outspoken, right? And comes from the same background, so clearly not a surprise, but very often he will share things like, so for example, we're from Ukraine, and he will share something saying, if you follow, this person who's in the running to be the next president versus, the one I'm following, please unfriend me right away. And honestly, we see that a lot with our own friends and family members here in North America as well, right? And that bothers me because I feel everybody has the right to their belief and their self-expression, etc. You don't need to censor other people and their opinions. So I've expressed it, I've said it, but how do you deal? I wouldn't accept it if it somehow started infringing of what I do and how I express myself. But of course, it makes me cringe when I see those things in action. Here's my UVP. UVP is the equivalent of if you're in a job interview and you're asked, why should we hire you over everybody else? Your UVP is what you bring to the table, who you are. It's kind of a statement about your unique value proposition. So not quite your why, but the value that you're bringing. So if you work with me in any capacity, you can expect that I will infuse you with energy, self-confidence, and hope. And you will see those words come from brand descriptors. Energy, people tell me that I really help them believe in themselves and believe that they can do anything and give a sense of hope because I'm an optimist. So I will infuse you with energy, self-confidence, and hope while helping you brand yourself as you navigate the career transition process towards ultimate career fulfillment. So that is my unique value proposition. again, we're doing 101 right now. So I'm showing you kind of the surface of everything that's important and giving you some ideas of how to derive, how to arrive at those final conclusions. But we are doing a 101. Roberta, we don't have another 2 hours. So keep in mind that, of course, there's a lot more work to do. Do you find that often the value of unique is overused? Look, a lot of things are overused, Paul. That's a great question. The phrase personal brand is overused. The phrase you should be bringing value is overused. So there are a lot of things that are overused, of course, but there's still something that, in different things combined does make you unique for certain situations and applications. So I do believe that it's still important and you're able to arrive at that. So for example, I know that my ability to infuse people with energy is harder to do virtually, but when I'm in a personal session, personal, in-person event, I know that energy is at the core of my uniqueness. I know that my ability, because I'm so confident that, people need to own their message, that people need to be self-confident, need to, there is that hope, anything is possible. Those things combined with what it is that I do, where I apply it, does create a unique value proposition. In your experience with clients and as a headhunter, how have you seen personal branding come out to play? Fanny, sometimes for the better and then sometimes not. Thank you, Antonietta. I appreciate that a lot. I'm going to just stop sharing. I guess I can see your faces. How has my personal branding affected my relationships with clients? This is really interesting. On the flip side, on the positive side, financially, I got saved during COVID because of my clients, because of my personal brand, not because of my corporate brand. When I wrote that I was struggling, I could see that people were just thinking of what projects they could give me, just so that, I would stay afloat. It brings tears to my eyes because it's incredible and it's true. So I am able to develop really deep, authentic, profound relationships with clients and with job seekers. I have job seekers that will message me and say, I don't know if you remember me, but we spoke, you interviewed me 15 years ago and I still remember you because you made me feel good and because you gave me hope and you made me feel like I could. All those things that are my UVP has always been the same thing, right? That hasn't changed. I have people saying, I became a recruiter 10 years later, and I've always used you as a benchmark because, this is the experience I had. So it does help create that incredible synergy. Now, it's not always positive, and I share the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've had clients who didn't like this personal brand so much. I had one of my sales guys go on a client meeting with a prospective client, new client. He came back, and this guy had been with me for years. He came back, my sales guy, and he goes, Marina, I love you. But honestly, I go, what? Because it was a 1-hour meeting. I did get us a mandate, but we spent it was a 2-hour meeting. They spent an hour and a half talking about me because the person he was meeting with disagrees with my posts, disagrees with my points of view, disagrees what I have to say, is not a fan of my personal brand and wanted to discuss it with my employee. And my employee goes, listen, and again, I love you, but I haven't been reading what you've been posting lately. I didn't even know what you were saying. So I just sat there, be like, so not always. And hence is the power of a personal brand. The people that it will resonate with, that will become the true tribe that will see you through the toughest staring at the ceiling moments, but it will repel other people too, who are going to say, you're just not my cup of tea. Aaron, how cool is that? Did you guys see that? Aaron's offering to be a sounding board and help people deep into their why. Oh my God, that just really warmed my heart. That's so cool that you offer that. Okay, so let's see what is remaining. I will encourage you guys to work on your personal brand. Sandra, you raised your hand. Yes, what is your question? Oh, you raised it by mistake? Okay. So let's jump back. Now I feel like unmuting you and asking you to come up with a question anyways. I'm just kidding, I won't do that. Not that mean. Okay, so I'll encourage you all to work on your UVP. I was hoping we'd have a bit of time to do it right now, but we do not. So I encourage you to do it on your own time. Oh, and please mute yourself if you haven't, which is fine at timing. As the sliders make some noise, I hear somebody making noise. That is really funny. So the next step is, and this is also to your point, Olivier, of making noise and creating content, right? Because an easy way to stand out is to start creating content right now online, but I'm a big believer, again, in taking online and bringing it offline. God willing, eventually it will happen again and we will be in the offline format too. But it's very quick and easy to gather, to get eyeballs on you and to start building a network, particularly on LinkedIn. One of you said there's a lot of noise right now. You might have been referring to LinkedIn. The thing is, there is a lot of noise, but not really. And what I mean by that is that over 90% of people, I don't remember if it's 95 or 98% of people post less than 3 times per week. Okay, so there's a lot of noise, but you have the opportunity with a really strong commitment to content creation. If you do it frequently, you will be in the 1 to 2% of people that it was 99 or 98 or 99%. But you will be in a very small percentage of people that start standing out in people's feeds. It's noisy, but how the feed is organized is not by the most recent post. It is organized by the top posts. What are the top posts? It's people who start falling in that top percentage of posting really frequently, engaging with other people, and being very active on the platform. So it's very possible to rank high very quickly. Again, it's really interesting. I had a consulting call with one of my career coaching clients. And he said, oh, Marina, I hear you, I understand. He's like, but I really find it obnoxious when, because I find it obnoxious when, those people are posting every single day or every second day, and they're constantly, I open my LinkedIn and there they are again. I find it obnoxious. And so he gave me examples of a couple of people. And I listened to that and I said, okay, Michael, question for you. When you open your LinkedIn, am I not at the top of your feed most of the time? Because I post at least every single day. I am those people. He goes, yeah, it's true. Yeah, you are. I see you all the time. And I'm like, and isn't it also true that you reached out to me to be your coach? You didn't reach out to the ones that are less annoying and less, on there all the time. You reached out to me. And he goes, well, no, it's because your content is different. I said, it's not that it's different. It's that you relate to it, right? We share similar value, similar interest. So it's not what we perceive as annoying is when it's annoying to us, it's not because of the frequencies, because when people post content that does nothing to us, then seeing it all the time becomes annoying. Even seeing it sometimes becomes annoying, right? So there is the matter of quality, but quality as it pertains to your audience. And so the next exercise that I will want you to do, you'll do that at home, is what you want to identify is who do you want to be speaking to? Who do you want your audience to be? That is really important. And the more narrow you are in that, the more you will start resonating with people and the more you will feel that you're posting all over the place. I talk to people in career transition. I talk to people predominantly who are in their 40s and 50s, fellow parents, and I talk to immigrants. So I know who I'm talking to, and so my content becomes, really clear to me because I know who I'm hoping, who I hope will relate to me. And so, of course, by extension, I have people different age groups or different, whatever other groups that might, relate to my content as well. But those are my areas of focus. So you want to ask for yourself. So, for example, if you have a knitting business, who are you targeting? Is it going to be, a mom who wants her daughter to be knitting? Is it going to be an older woman? Who is your target? That's very, very important. That will be the first thing for you to do. And then you will want to decide what you're going to be posting. Here is where imposter syndrome shows its ugly face again. I'm not an expert. Who am I to be writing? People are gonna say, you know, who is she to be saying? Natalia is shaking her head so much, she agrees. True. And here's what I'm gonna tell you. You know what content does the worst on social media? Is that expert content, the tips. We are all so over-tipped when we didn't ask for it that we don't want to be preached at or taught anything when we didn't ask. Here, I am telling you guys, I'm giving you tips, but you asked for it, you came for it. I bet you I would be, and there's some things you've been telling me, that's amazing, and I love that, that's great. I post the exact same things on social. My engagement is not amazing. People didn't ask me to be preaching at them. So here I am, doesn't really work. You know what works is stories and things that make you, you know, feel human. That's what really works. And so look, I did include here, and by the way, if Allery and Naya want to share the slides, I'm very happy to share them with you all so that you can have, you know, those tangible things. So for example, if you're building a content plan, here's an idea for you. You think of 5 stories that you like telling people about yourself. And I bet you we all have 5 that always, you meet new people and you start telling them something about yourself. That's an interesting story. You're happy with it. Boom. 5 experiences who made you who you are, lessons learned. 5 of your favorite quotes, your favorite books and takeaways, people who have impacted you, leaders that you follow. Here are just some ideas. With my clients, of course, we develop customized plans that also build on their thought pillars. But do you see here that there's only one line I put on including 5 tips that relate to your area of expertise? Because as I said again, people are not necessarily looking for tips unless they asked for them. So the tips and where you want to be showing that, you know, you are an expert, you don't have to. And also, you know what you can do, especially you mentioned you're from the culture where you don't want to be showy, feature other people, feature other experts, interview experts and share their stories. Be the curator of other people's stories. You become the expert by association. It doesn't have to be yours. Share the wisdom of others. Why not? Again, you start being associated with that by default. When the pandemic hit, I launched my LinkedIn Live TV series. Or actually, that is one plug that I'll do. If you guys can follow that on LinkedIn, that I would enjoy. I'm not selling anything, but I'll sell you on my LinkedIn Lives. They're free. It's called Voice of a Leader, LinkedIn Live show. So Voice of a Leader. I interview the most amazing experts from all over the world. My last one was an undercover cop federal prosecutor who's now a trust strategist. I've interviewed the top body language expert in the world. I interview really awesome people. And so see, I'm not there to show that I know this and I know that, but I'm building my personal brand by association, right? With those amazing experts. So those are the things that I would recommend. Thank you, Valerie. You're so on point. You even put the link there right away. So I would say that, you know, it's really interesting for me to reflect back to where I started. And I told you I never would have thought in a million years that here I would be talking about owning a voice and scaling its reach, where all I wanted at the time was inside, I wanted to express myself and be heard, but externally, I just wanted to be invisible and mute. And here we are talking about voice and the importance of scaling it. It really is my hope that, not that I taught you something today, even though I think it's great to be able to teach something, it is my hope that I inspired you to take the time to uncover the uniqueness and the strength and the power of your own voice, and to gift the rest of the world by scaling it and speaking your unique message. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Marina. That was absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. Complimenting me on my behind the screen energy. I appreciate it. It's not as easy.
Thank you so much. You gave us so much tips and gems of wisdom. Are there any last minute questions anyone would like to ask? please feel free to not only follow Voice of a Leader, but to also follow Marina on LinkedIn.
Yes, Natalia, you can absolutely reach out to me through LinkedIn. And as I said, I will always respond, and I always try to book a call to speak. So if you're interested in, it's absolutely my pleasure. Yes, the slides also, I will share them with Valerie and Nayo. So if they can share the slides, because somebody asked to see the last one, you can have the whole thing.
Yes, we'll email everyone who registered, so you'll all get a copy. Nayo, do you mind adding the Facebook link for everyone? Thank you. So we're going to add our Facebook page in the chat if you want to rewatch the session. Thank you so much.
This is awesome. Are you able to save also the chat box so that I can review and see if there are any questions I missed?
Absolutely. So we'll save the chat and we'll send it to you. Awesome.
Natalia, yo hablo español. Si jamás usted quiere hablar, lo podemos hacer. I saw a question in Spanish, so I thought I'd...
Okay. Amazing. Amazing. So thank you so much for joining us for a wonderful Power Skills session. Marina, as always, you're absolutely fantastic. Thank you for giving us your time. And make sure to join Marina tomorrow as she talks about her failures. Yes. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you.